Here we are.
No.
Hello, 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 hello.
Well, not yet. You guys are still invisible, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, Mauricio's
I
not
like being
invisible.
an invisible person.
Fudge
Aw,
Superior. No,
I just said I was. I like
you
being
get to
an
be the
invisible person.
first visible person on
Hooray!
screen.
Aww.
Hello, I am doing classwork at the moment. I'm having fun doing
You're gonna multitask?
No, until we like officially start.
Oh,
This
well,
is
I mean,
Ah,
I've
it's
started.
pre-gaming.
We're pre-reading. I don't know.
We're pre-ing.
This is like, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
It does sound awkward. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
I'm joking. I'm just,
Oh
screwing with you.
no. It sounds weird. That's why I said it.
I know. I'm aware. Welcome
So what
back,
is this?
everyone, to the Digital Dojo. I don't know what this is, but this is Baljeet, and then this is Fudge Superior.
hello.
Fudge
Hi
and I.
there.
Fudge
No,
and I. Yeah. What?
Sorry. Don't worry about
Okay. Okay. I'm not worried. I don't know what's happening. I think they're in their own little heads right now. I'm gonna get on with my preamble. Welcome to the Digital Dojo, where you challenge, meditate, and cooperate. Today, it's with the books. And we're continuing our read-through of Frankenstein from Volume 2, Chapter 4. This is some lovely music we have going right now. I think this is the loveliest music
You
we've started
streaming it?
with.
Oh wait, you are streaming. That's my fault.
I am, yeah, I'm streaming.
Oh, it says stream pause on my end. What am I doing wrong?
Oh, because I minimized the gosh dang Firefox, that's why.
There it
Ha ha
is.
ha. I was
Huh.
gonna deprive you of music.
Oh no.
Sorry.
It's okay. It sounds lovely.
It is lovely. It is. I feel really relaxed today. Fudge and I went out and we did some frisbee golf before this.
That we did.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. It was just such a nice day. And like I feel like this music really complements the light wispy blue skies that we saw today, and the trees in the park and their leaves had turned. It makes me feel cozy. I'm ready for more Frankenstein and the daunting challenges ahead that the creature and Victor shall face together in their angst against each other and the world. Facing those ideals, etc. How are you folks feeling?
Artistic.
Sleepy but ready.
I'm kind of sleepy too. I'm ready for the sleepy vibes.
There's a dog.
A dog. What kind of dog?
He
Where?
is a what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for here? Terrier. Miniature schnauzer.
Oh, you talking about? Oh, I know it. So the dog's in there with you, Mr. Pickles?
Yeah, Mr. Pickles. Yeah, I had
Yeah,
my
Mr. Pickles.
I had my hand hanging down, and he just started licking it.
Huh? Oh, you'll be pleased to know also, the audio ducking is working today when you guys are speaking. So,
Oh,
hooray!
nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think we
Really?
finally figured that shit out.
It's a good Friday indeed.
Yeah. How's
nice,
everyone's
very nice.
week been?
Oh, it's been eventful. The first
Yeah.
week back after a break. But I guess a good eventful too. You know,
Close the book for now, while we talk, while we chit chat. Okay. Yeah. What sort of eventful things have been going on in the life of Baljeet?
so I gotta try out some of that stuff from the Ron Clark Academy, and so my kids seemed a lot more into certain things this time around. I definitely felt more motivated with stuff because it didn't seem as mundane with certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
What else happened? I've been lifting my baby up and like going like saying one baby baby, two baby baby, like doing like little exercises. But like
Yeah.
whenever like she whenever I do that, like she just starts laughing, and so it's like it's motivational for me, like not just like to do exercises, but just like spend more time with her doing
Yeah.
that. So it's been fun.
That sounds great. Sounds like
Yeah.
progress.
Yes, it is. How about you guys?
I've been doing a lot more streaming this week, and I've been pretty happy about that. I've been really enjoying my time with Half-Life Opposing Force as well as Alan Wake. I didn't mess up the title this time. I didn't say Global Offensive. And I finished a game that I've been streaming on and off for 2 years, which
Wow.
was Thief the Dark Project, and I'm just really, really excited to jump into the sequel at some point. It's a game that means a lot to me now, and I look forward to many experiences with it in the future as I revisit it. I think it's such a groundbreaking game, even by today's standards, in terms of how it uses stealth elements and immersiveness.
So you said it was Thief.
Thief the Dark Project.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ah,
And then yesterday, Addison, aka the Hideous Kojima, who might be showing up, and I, we fucked around in Metal Gear Solid for a while for like speedrun stuff. So we're practicing. We're practicing doing trials for a big race that's possibly happening mid-month. Happy December 1st, everybody, by the way.
hello.
Yeah.
It is the first day of Whamageddon.
Yeah. Wait,
Last
what?
Christmas.
Oh gosh.
December 1st, baby. Here we go.
I'll decidedly listen to other Wham songs that I like better than that. Although
It is a good
last
song.
year that music video, the last Christmas music video, got a 4K restoration, which was really, really cool, and it looks
Oh
great.
wow.
Yeah.
Merry
joke.
Christmas, Wham.
Yeah. Rest in peace, George Michael. Great voice.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. I got really stony baloney the other day, like 2
Nice.
weeks ago, and I watched the 4K restoration of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and it was fantastic.
Oh, very cool.
Sounds fun to get stony baloney.
I'm just high on life all the time. I don't need that shit. I'm good.
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
If I just stay up late, I mean, I feel like I'm laughing enough. It works.
Yeah. I'm pretty open.
Oh, but
Some days are better than
speaking-
others, of course, but yeah.
Speaking of Christmas music stuff, I was playing some, was it Trans-Siberian Orchestra? Is that the
Oh yeah,
the band?
that's always great. Yeah.
The that like the metal Christmas
Yes.
song cover thing.
Yeah. My
And
dad
I was
loves
surprised that
that.
my kids were like jamming out to that. Because they like more like rap and hip hop and that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So whenever I put on something that's like metal, I'm always surprised by how much they enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, should we dive in?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we do what we did last time and kind of hop around with paragraphs, or do you want to like do what we did the last other 2 streams? What are we
I like
thinking?
the paragraph rotation. It seems like the pacing was better doing that.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. This notification. Okay. Okay, I'm done. Alright, let's go for it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the book up on stream right now. And Who would like to do the honors to go first?
Who stopped last time?
I don't remember. It was a week ago.
I feel like it was. It was what?
I don't know. It was a week ago.
I feel like I usually am the one who does the ending of the chapters.
Okay. Then I
I mean,
guess
I
it
can
would
pick it up.
be my turn.
Oh.
Wait.
Oh yeah. If we want to keep
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
rotation, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Yes. Okay. Gosh, I'm really into this music right now. You guys can still hear it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we should do things a little more somber since it is the monster talking to Victor about his misfortunes.
Up to you. I'm just gonna go with whatever the vibe is. I'm actually gonna go ahead and dim my lights too. Without further ado, let's begin. I lay on my straw, but I could not sleep. I thought of the occurrences that day. What chiefly struck me was the gentle manners of these people, and I longed to join them but dared not. I remembered too well the treatment I had suffered the night before the barbarous villagers, and resolved, whatever course of conduct I might hereafter think it right to pursue, that for the present I would remain quietly in my hovel, watching and endeavoring to discover the motives which influenced their actions. The cottagers arose the next morning before the sun. The young one arranged the cottage and prepared the food, and the youth departed after the first meal. No.
This day was passed in the same routine as that which preceded it. The young man was constantly employed out of doors, and the girl in various laborious occupations within. The old man, whom I soon perceived to be blind, employed his leisure hours on his instrument, or in contemplation. Nothing could exceed the love and respect which the younger cottagers exhibited towards their venerable companion. They performed towards him every little office of affection and duty with gentleness, and he rewarded them by his benevolent smiles.
They were not entirely happy. The young man and his companion often went apart and appeared to weep. I saw no cause for their unhappiness, but I was deeply affected by it. If such lovely creatures were miserable, it was less strange that I, an imperfect and solitary being, should be wretched. Yet, why were these gentle beings unhappy? They possessed a delightful house, for such it was in my eyes, and every luxury. They had a fire to warm them when chill, and delicious viand when hungry. They were dressed in excellent clothes, and still more, they enjoyed one another's company and speech, interchanging each day looks of affection and kindness. What did their tears imply? Did they really express pain? I was at first unable to solve these questions, but perpetual attention and time explained to me many appearances which were at first enigmatic.
I just realized I had not made an announcement in the Renegades chat. Balji, do you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, just put like the links up and stuff.
Yeah.
I will continue on. A considerable period elapsed before I discovered one of the causes of the uneasiness in this amiable family. It was poverty, and they suffered that evil in a very distressing degree. Their nourishment consisted entirely of vegetables of their garden, and the milk of one cow, who gave very little during the winter, when its masters could scarcely procure food to support it. They often, I believe, suffered the pangs of hunger very poignantly, especially the two younger cottagers. For several times, they placed food before the old man when they reserved none for themselves. This kind of trait moved me sensibly. I had been accustomed, during the night, to steal a part of their store for my own consumption, but when I found that in doing this I inflicted pain upon the cottagers, I abstained. and satisfied myself with berries, nuts, and roots, which I gathered from a neighboring wood.
I discovered also another means through which I was enabled to assist their labors. I found that the youth spent a great part of each day in collecting wood for the family fire, and during the night I often took his tools, the use of which I quickly discovered, and brought home firing sufficient for the consumption of several days. And I'm gonna keep reading because that was a short paragraph.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I did this. The young woman, when she opened the door in the morning, appeared greatly astonished on seeing a great pile of wood on the outside. She uttered some words in a loud voice, and the youth joined her, who also expressed surprise. I observed with pleasure that he did not go to the forest that day, but spent it in repairing the cottage and cultivating the garden.
By degrees, I made a discovery of still greater moment. I found that these people possessed a method of communicating their experience and feelings to one another by articulate sounds. I perceived that the words they spoke sometimes produced pain, pleasure, or pain, smiles, or sadness in the minds and countenance of the hearers. This was indeed a godlike science, and I ardently desired to become acquainted with it. But I was baffled in every attempt I made for this purpose. Their pronunciation was quick, and the words they uttered not having any apparent connection, right? Connection with visible objects. So. I was unable to discover any clue by which I could unravel the mystery of their reference. By great application, however, and after having remained during the space of several revolutions of the moon in my hovel, I discovered the names that were given to some of the most familiar objects of discourse. I learned and applied the words fire, milk, bread, and wood. I learned also the names of the cottagers themselves. The youth and his companion each of them several names, but the old man had only one, which was Father. The girl was called Sister, or Agatha, and the youth Felix, brother or son. I could not describe the delight I felt when I learned the ideas appropriated to each of these sounds and was able to pronounce them. I distinguished several other words without being able as yet to understand or apply them, such as good, dearest, unhappy.
I spent the winter in this manner. The gentle manners and beauty of the cottagers greatly endeared them to me. When they were unhappy, I felt depressed. When they rejoiced, I sympathized in their joys. I saw few human beings beside them, and if any other happened to enter the cottage, their harsh manners and rude gait only enhanced to me the superior accomplishments of my friends. The old man, I could perceive, often endeavored to encourage his children, as sometimes I found that he called them to cast off their melancholy. He would talk in a cheerful accent, with an expression of goodness that bestowed pleasure even upon me. Agatha listened with respect, her eyes sometimes filled with tears, which she endeavored to wipe away unperceived. But I generally found that her countenance and tone were more cheerful after having listened to the exhortations of her father. It was not thus with Felix. He was always the saddest of the group, and even to my unpracticed senses, he appeared to have suffered more deeply than his friends. But if his countenance was more sorrowful, his voice was more cheerful than that of his sister, especially when he addressed the old man.
I could mention innumerable instances which, although slight, mark the dispositions of these amiable cottagers. In the midst of poverty and want, Felix carried with pleasure to his sister the first little white flower that peeped out from beneath the snowy ground. Early in the morning, before she had risen, he cleared away the snow that obstructed her path to the milk house, drew water from the well, and brought the wood from the outhouse, where, to his perpetual astonishment, he found the store always replenished by an invisible hand. In the day, I believe, he worked sometimes for a neighboring farmer, because he often went forth, and did not return until dinner, yet brought no wood with him. At other times, he worked in the garden. But as there was little to do in the frosty season, he read to the old man and Agatha.
Frosty freeze.
Frosty
frozen
freeze. I have brain
section.
freeze as I read about frosty season, apparently.
Right, before we go on, I'm gonna go ahead and switch up the compressor really quick. Just a moment.
Yes. I can feel myself getting smaller, more compressed.
No, it's more about the audio ducking and what kind of balance I want to achieve with that. Because I feel like it might be too jarring if it like goes way too low when we speak, and then rise back
Audio
up.
ducking.
Donut. To get it consistent here.
You want us to say something to test it?
It looks good to me.
All right.
Okay. Are we starting from this recently had puzzled me?
Yes.
Oh. This reading
turn.
had. Oh.
Well, yeah. Well, you just read. It's my turn.
Okay, I'm forgetting again.
This reading had puzzled me extremely at first, but by degrees, I discovered that he uttered many of the same sounds when he read as when we talked. I conjectured, therefore, that he found on the paper signs for speech which he understood, and I ardently longed to comprehend these also. But how was that possible? When I did not even understand the sounds for which they stood as signs. I improved, however, sensibly in this science, but not sufficiently to follow up any kind of conversation. Although I applied my whole mind to the endeavor, for I easily perceived that although I eagerly longed to discover myself to the cottagers, I ought not to make the attempt until I had first become master of their language. Which knowledge might enable me to make them overlook the deformity of my figure, for with this also the contrast perpetually presented to my eyes had made me acquainted.
My turn. Okay.
I had admired the perfect form.
No! I had admired the perfect forms of my cottagers, their grace, beauty, and delicate complexions. But how was I terrified when I viewed myself in a transparent pool? At first I started back, unable to believe that it was indeed I who was reflected. Okay, there we go. In the mirror! And when I became fully convinced that I was in reality the monster that I am, I was filled with the bitterest sensations of despondence and mortification. Alas, I did not yet entirely know the fatal effects of this miserable deformity.
As the sun became warmer and the light of day longer, the snow vanished, and I beheld the bare trees and the black earth. From this time, Felix was more employed, and the heart-moving indications of impending famine disappeared. Their food, as I afterwards found, was coarse, but it was wholesome, and they procured a sufficiency of it. Several new kinds of plants sprung up in the garden, which they dressed, and these signs of comfort increased daily as the season advanced.
The old man, leaning on his son, walked each day at noon when it did not rain, as I found it was called when the heavens poured forth its waters. This frequently took place, but a high wind quickly dried the earth and the season became far more pleasant than it had been. My mode of life in my hovel was uniform. During the morning, I attended the motions of the cottagers, and when they were dispersed in various occupations, I slept. The remainder of the day was spent in observing my friends. When they had retired to rest, if there was any moon or night was starlight, I went into the woods and collected my own food and fuel for the cottage. When I returned, as often as it was necessary, I cleared their path from the snow and performed those offices that I had seen done by Felix. I afterward found that these labors, performed by an invisible hand, greatly astonished them. And once or twice I heard them, on these occasions, utter the words, "Good spirit, wonderful." But I did not then understand the signification of these terms.
My thoughts now became more active, and I longed to discover the motives and feelings of these lovely creatures. I was inquisitive to know why Felix appeared so miserable and Agatha so sad. I thought, foolish wretch, that it might be in my power to restore happiness to those deserving people. When I slept or was absent, the forms of the venerable blind father, the gentle Agatha, and the excellent Felix flitted before me. I looked upon them as superior beings who would be the arbiters of my future destiny. I formed in my imagination 1,000 pictures of presenting myself to them, and their reception of me. I imagined that they would be disgusted until, by my gentle demeanor and conciliating words, I should first win their favor, and afterwards their love.
These thoughts exhilarated me and led me to apply with fresh ardor to the acquiring the art of language. My organs were indeed harsh, but supple, and although my voice was very unlike the soft music of their tones, yet I pronounced such words as I understood with tolerable ease. It was as the ass and the lapdog, yet surely the gentle ass, whose intentions were affectionate, although his manners were rude, deserved better treatment than blows and execration.
Gentle ass.
Donkeys are pretty chill, though.
Yeah. Pleasant. The pleasant showers and genial warmth of spring greatly altered the aspect of the earth. Men, who before this change seemed to have hidden caves, dispersed themselves and were employed in various arts of cultivation. The birds sang in more cheerful notes, and the leaves began to bud forth on the trees. Happy, happy earth, fit habitation for gods, which, so short a time before, was bleak, damp, and unwholesome. My spirits were elevated by the enchanting appearance of nature. The past was blotted from my memory, the present was tranquil, and the future gilded by bright rays of hope and anticipations of joy.
Ooh, gilded.
Chapter 5.
In Chapter 5.
I now hasten to the more moving part of my story. I shall relate events that impressed me with feelings which, from what I was, have made me what I am. Spring advanced rapidly, the weather became fine, and the skies cloudless. It surprised me that what before was desert and gloomy should now bloom with the most beautiful flowers and verdure. My senses were gratified and refreshed by 1,000 scents of delight and 1,000 sights of beauty. It was on one of these days, when my cottagers periodically rested from their labor, the old man played on his guitar, and the children listened to him. I observed that the countenance of Felix was melancholy beyond expression. He sighed frequently, and once his father paused in his music, and I conjectured by his manner that he inquired the cause of his son's sorrow. Felix replied in a cheerful accent, and the old man was recommencing his music, when someone tapped at the door.
It was a lady on horseback, accompanied by a countryman as a guide. The lady was dressed in a dark suit and covered with a thick black veil. Agatha asked a question, to which the stranger only replied by pronouncing in a sweet accent the name of Felix. Her voice was musical, but unlike that of either of my friends. On hearing this word, Felix came up hastily to the lady, who, when she saw him, threw up her veil, and I beheld a countenance of angelic beauty and expression. Her hair of a shining raven black, and curiously braided. Her eyes were dark, but gentle. Although animated, her features of a regular proportion, and her complexion wondrously fair, each cheek tinged with a lovely pink.
Felix seemed ravished with delight when he saw her. Every trait of sorrow vanished from his face, and it instantly expressed a degree of ecstatic joy, of which I could hardly have believed it capable. His eyes sparkled as his cheeks flushed with pleasure, and at that moment I thought him as beautiful as the stranger. She appeared affected by different feelings. Wiping a few tears from her lovely eyes, she held out her hand to Felix, who kissed it rapturously, and called her, as well as I could distinguish, his sweet Arabian. Interesting. She did not appear to understand him, but smiled. He assisted her to dismount, and dismissing her guide, conducted her into the cottage. Some conversation took place between him and his father, and the young stranger knelt at the old man's feet and would have kissed his hand, but he raised her and embraced her affectionately.
I soon perceived that although the stranger uttered articulate sounds, and appeared to have a language of her own, she was neither understood by, or herself understood, the cottagers. They made many signs which I did not comprehend, but I saw that her presence diffused gladness through the cottage, dispelling their sorrow as the sun dissipates the morning mists. Felix seemed peculiarly happy, and with smiles of delight welcomed his Arabian. Agatha, the ever-gentle Agatha, kissed the hands of the lovely stranger, and pointing to her brother made signs which appeared to me to mean that he had been sorrowful until she came. Some hours passed thus, while they, by their countenances, expressed joy, the cause of which I did not comprehend. Presently I found, by the frequent recurrence of one sound which the stranger repeated after them, that she was endeavoring to learn their language, and the idea instantly occurred to me that I should make use of the same instructions to the same end. The stranger learned about 20 words at the first lesson. Most of them indeed were those which I had understood before, but I profited by the others.
Night came on. Agatha and the Arabian retired early. When they separated, Felix kissed the hand of the stranger and said, "Good night, sweet Safi." He sat up much longer, conversing with his father, and by the frequent repetition of her name, I conjectured that their lovely guest was the subject of their conversation. I ardently desired to understand them, and bent every faculty toward that purpose, but found it utterly impossible. The next morning, Felix went out to his work, and, after the usual occupations of Agatha were finished, the Arabian sat at the feet of the old man, and, taking his guitar, played some airs so entrancingly beautiful that they at once drew tears of sorrow and delight from my eyes. She sang, and her voice flowed in a rich cadence, swelling or dying away like a nightingale of the woods.
When she had finished, she gave the guitar to Agatha, who at first declined it. She played a simple air, and her voice accompanied it in sweet accents, but unlike the wondrous strain of the stranger. The old man appeared enraptured, and said some words which Agatha endeavored to explain to Safi, and by which he appeared to wish to express that she bestowed on him the greatest delight by her music. The days now passed as peaceably as before, with the sole alteration that joy had taken the place of sadness in the countenance of my friends. Safi was always gay and happy. She and I improved rapidly in the knowledge of language, so that in 2 months I began to comprehend most of the words uttered by my protectors.
Meanwhile, also the black ground was covered with herbage, and the green banks interspersed with innumerable flowers. Yeah, that green herbage, you know. Sweet to the scent, and the eyes, stars of pale radiance among the moonlight woods. sun became warmer, the nights clear and balmy, and my nocturnal rambles were an extreme pleasure to me, although they were considerably shortened by the late setting and early rising of the sun, for I never ventured abroad during daylight, fearful of meeting with the same treatment as I had formerly endured in the first village which I entered.
My days were spent in close attention, that I might more speedily master the language, and I may boast that I improved more rapidly than the Arabian, who understood very little, and conversed in broken accents, whilst I comprehended and could imitate almost every word that was spoken. While I improved in speech, I also learned the science of letters, as it was taught to the stranger, and this opened before me a wide field for wonder and delight.
The book from which Felix instructed Safi was Volney's Ruins of Empires. I should not have understood the purport of this book had not Felix, in reading it, given very minute explanations. He had chosen this work, he said, because the declamatory style was framed in imitation of the Eastern authors. Through this work, I obtained a cursory knowledge of history, and a view of the several empires at present existing in the world. It gave me an insight into the manners, governments, and religions of the different nations of the earth. I heard of the slothful Asiatics?
Yes.
Asiatics, yeah? For the stupendous genius and mental activity of the Grecians, of the wars and wonderful virtue of the early Romans, of their subsequent degeneration, of the decline of that mighty empire, of chivalry, Christianity, and kings. I heard of the discovery of the American hemisphere, and wept with Safi over the hapless fate of its original inhabitants. I want to say a couple things here. So, is Safi what, like a mail order bride or something for Felix? Like, what's the deal there?
I'm trying to figure that out.
I feel like that's what this is. I feel like it's a mail order bride that they're trying to.
Except
speak
they're
English.
poor, and I don't think that they would be able to afford such a thing.
Are they poor?
He did mention that they were impoverished, yeah.
So is there some arrangement with her for them to be able to get more money or something?
I don't know, because they're educated. Like, they can obviously read, and at these times, if you didn't read, you couldn't read if you were poor.
Right. I wonder if there's some sort of familial arrangement going on, that perhaps they were once wealthy and now they're poor. I don't know.
Very interesting. Also, let me just say it. Fuck Julius Caesar. He deserved to be stabbed.
Yeah.
The Romans were
Not for
pretty
being
nasty.
a pompous asshole, but he single-handedly threw us into the Dark Ages.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And I'm pretty mad about that.
A lot
Just
of
imagine
ancient
how life
knowledge
would have
was
been right now. Yes, I know.
Yep.
Hashtag justice for the Library of Alexandria.
That's exactly where I was going with that as well. Continuing onward.
Continuing onwards.
These wonderful narrations. These wonderful narrations inspired me with strange feelings. Was man indeed at once so powerful, so virtuous and magnificent, yet so vicious and base? He appeared at one time a mere scion of the evil principle, and at another as all that can be conceived of noble and godlike. To be a great and virtuous man appeared the highest honor that can befall a sensitive being. To be base and vicious, as many on record have been, appeared the lowest degradation, a condition more abject than that of the blind mole or harmless worm. For a long time I could not conceive how one man could go forth to murder his fellow, or even why there were laws and governments. But when I heard details of vice and bloodshed, my wonder ceased, and I turned away with disgust and loathing.
Every conversation of the cottagers now opened new wonders to me. While I listened to the instructions which Felix bestowed upon the Arabian, the strange system of human society was explained to me. I heard of the division of property, of immense wealth and squalid poverty, of rank, descent, and noble blood. The words induced me to turn towards myself. I learned that the possessions of most esteemed by your fellow creatures were high and unsullied descent, united with riches. A man might be respected with only one of those acquisitions, but without either, he was considered, except in very rare instances, as a vagabond and a slave, doomed to waste his powers for the profit of the chosen few. And what was I? Of my creation and creator I was absolutely ignorant, but I knew that I possessed no money, no friends, no kind of poverty. I was, besides, endowed with a figure hideously deformed and loathsome. I was not even of the same nature as man. I was more agile than they, and could subsist upon coarser diet. I bore the extremes of heat and cold with less injury to my frame. My stature far exceeded theirs. When I looked around, I saw and heard of none like me. Was I then a monster? A blot upon the earth, from which all men fled and from whom all men disowned?
I'm kind of feeling for this reanimated corpse. Well, Victor so far has taken zero accountability of of what he's done.
He was
I
born
felt bad
into
once Victor
disgust.
just screamed at him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, bruh, he's talking to you in such a chill manner. He's just like, you gotta listen to me, bro. Like, I've seen some bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for like your creator to be like, leave me, you're a wretched thing. You know, this is just everything he's saying that he's witnessing even before. Like, he's counting, he's telling Victor, this is my rationality right now. And even like he's coming to terms with you, my creator, are also like shooing me away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel bad for it. It's like Victor can go. I'm going to withhold my judgment of Victor until after this whole encounter happens with them. All right, continuing.
I'll go ahead and say it. They should have called defects on Victor.
I cannot describe to you the agony that these reflections inflicted upon me. I tried to dispel them, but sorrow only increased with knowledge. Oh, that I had forever remained in my native wood, nor known or felt beyond the sensations of hunger, thirst, and heat. Of what a strange nature is knowledge. It clings to my mind when it has once seized on it, like a lichen on a rock. I wished sometimes to shake off all thought and feeling, but I learned that there was but one means to overcome the sensation of pain, and that was death, a state which I feared, yet did not understand. I admired virtue and good things, and loved the gentle manners and amiable qualities of my cottagers, but I was shut out from intercourse with them, except through means which I obtained by stealth, when I was unseen and unknown, and which rather increased than satisfied the desire I had of becoming one among my fellows. The gentle words of Agatha and the animated smiles of the charming Arabian were not for me. The mild exhortations of the old man and the lively conversations of the loved Felix were not for me, miserable, unhappy wretch.
Other lessons were impressed upon. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I had a quick question. So when it says shut out from intercourse there, does that mean like discourse in this case?
Intercourse is just a general, so it has a different connotation in our modern speech. But intercourse in general just means interacting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I read that. I was like, oh.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, it's not of a sexual nature in, you know, as we perceive it.
Gotcha.
With our modern speech. Intercourse meeting. Communication or dealings between individuals or groups. Short for sexual intercourse. That's what it says in the Google dictionary there
Thank
from
you.
Webster. Well,
Also, thank you,
Webster.
Fudge, for the burp.
You're welcome. It's cashew fueled.
Cashew fueled belch.
I have a bag of Kirkland signature fancy whole cashews with sea salt.
Oh, fancy.
It's a 40-ounce bag that I have already whittled down to half.
Oh.
But not in one sitting.
Oh, I was gonna say. I wasn't gonna say. Everyone's got their own preferences, you know.
I don't know. When I have the pistachios out, sometimes we kind of go through that whole thing.
I do.
Yeah. Few of my friends do when I have pistachios out over at the house.
That's how he gets me to go over to his house. I'm kidding.
I bribe him with pistachios. I lead a little trail.
Hey, Fudge, you want to come over? Nah, man, I'm good. I got pistachios. Doorbell rings.
Ding dong.
Swan Lake. Other lessons were impressed upon me even more deeply. I heard of the difference of the sexes, of the birth and growth of the children. The birth and the growth of the children. Of the birth and growth of children. How the father doted on the smiles of the infant and the lively sallies of the older children. And how all the life and cares of the mother were wrapped in the how all life and cares of the mother were wrapped up in the precious charge. How the mind of youth expanded and gained knowledge of brother, sister, and all the various relationships that bind one human being to another in mutual bonds. But where were my friends and relations? No father had watched my infant days. No mother had blessed me with smiles and caresses. Or if they had, all my past life was now a blot, a blind vacancy in which I distinguished nothing. From my earliest remembrance, I had been as then as I was, in height and proportion. I had never yet seen a being resembling me, or who had claimed any intercourse with me. What was I? The question again occurred, to be answered only with groans. I will soon explain to what these feelings tended, but allow me now to return to the cottagers, whose story excited me in such various feelings of indignation, delight, and wonder, but which all terminated in additional love and reverence for my protectors, for so I loved in an innocent, half painful self-deceit to call them. Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6!
Let's go. Some time elapsed before I learned the history of my friends. It was one which could not fail to impress itself deeply on my mind, unfolding as it did a number of circumstances, each interesting and wonderful to one so utterly inexperienced as I was. The name of the old man was de Lacy. He was descended from a good family in France, where he had lived for many years in affluence, respected by his superiors and beloved by his equals. His son was bred in the service of his country, and Agatha had ranked with ladies of the highest distinction. A few months before my arrival, they had lived in a large and luxurious city called Paris, surrounded by friends. Oh, wait, is my cat coming through? Oh, goodness.
Okay.
You hear him?
We like the cat. Funny.
Can you hear him now?
Yes.
Oh, my wife said, do you guys want a cat?
Yeah.
He wakes up the baby. And usually you think he came through. Okay, hold on. Sorry.
I could use a cat in the digital dojo. That's what we're getting right now.
A dojo cat?
Yeah, what the hell?
Alright. Let's see, let me try that again. So, a few months before my arrival, they had lived in a large and luxurious city called Paris, surrounded by friends, and possessed of every enjoyment with which virtue, refinement of intellect, or taste accompanied by a moderate fortune could afford.
The father of Safi had been the cause of their ruin. He was a Turkish merchant and had inhabited Paris for many years. When, for some reason which I could not learn, he became obnoxious to the government, he was seized and cast into prison the very day that Safi arrived from Constantinople to join him. He was tried and condemned to death. The injustice of his sentence was very flagrant. All Paris was indignant. Oh, Jesus. And it was judged that his religion and wealth, rather than the crime alleged against him, had been the cause of his condemnation. Racist.
Nope.
I didn't like that sentence. Sentence was very flagrant. All Paris was indignant. Just those two words being so close together. Just in a semicolon. Like, no sense, no less, was just kind of weird. But continue.
Yeah. Felix had been present at the trial. His horror and indignation were uncontrollable even, when he heard the decision of the court. He made, at that moment, a solemn vow to deliver him, and then looked around for the means. After many fruitless attempts to gain admittance to the prison, he found a strongly grated window in an unguarded part of the building, which lighted the dungeon of the unfortunate Mahometan, who, loaded with chains, waited in despair the execution of the barbarous sentence. Is that continuing? Yeah. Felix visited the grate at night and made known to the prisoners his inventions. Felix visited the grate at night and made known to the prisoner his intentions in his favor. The Turk, amazed and delighted, endeavored to kindle the zeal of his deliverer by promises of reward and wealth. Felix rejected his offers with contempt, yet when he saw the lovely Safi, who was allowed to visit her father, and who by gestures expressed her lively gratitude, the youth could not help owning to his own mind that the captive possessed a treasure which would fully reward his toil and hazard.
The Turk quickly perceived the impression that his daughter had made on the heart of Felix, and endeavored to secure him more entirely in his interests by the promise of her hand in marriage, so soon as he should be conveyed to a place of safety. Felix was too delicate to accept this offer, yet he looked forward to the probability of that event as to the consummation of his happiness. During the ensuing days, while the preparations were going forward for the escape of the merchant, the zeal of Felix was warmed by several letters that he received from this lovely girl, who found means to express her thoughts in the language of her lover by the aid of an old man, a servant of her father's, who understood French. She thanked him in the most ardent terms for his intended services towards her father, and at the same time she gently deplored her own fate.
I have copies of these letters, for I found means during my residence in the hovel to procure the implements of writing. Creepy. And the letters were often in the hands of Felix or Agatha. Before I depart, I will give them to you. They will prove the truth of my tale. But at present, as the sun is already far declined, I shall only have time to repeat the substance of them to you. Safi related that her mother was a Christian Arab, seized and made a slave by the Turks. Recommended by her beauty, she had won the heart of the father of Safi, who married her. The young girl spoke in high and enthusiastic terms of her mother, who, born in freedom, spurned the bondage to which she was now reduced. She instructed her daughter in the tenets of her religion and taught her to aspire to higher powers of intellect and an independence of spirit, forbidden to the female followers of Mohammed. This lady died. but her lessons, this lady died.
Very abrupt.
Yeah, this lady died. But her lessons were indelibly impressed on the mind of Safi, who sickened at the prospect of again returning to Asia and the being immured within the walls of a harem, allowed only to occupy herself with puerile amusements. Ill-suited to the temper of her soul, now accustomed to grand ideas and a noble emulation for virtue. The prospect of marrying a Christian and remaining in a country where women were allowed to take a rank in society was enchanting to her.
The day for the execution of the Turk was fixed, but on the night previous to it, he had quitted prison, and before morning was distant many leagues from Paris. Felix had procured passports in the name of his father, sister, and himself. He had previously communicated his plan to the former, who aided the deceit by quitting his house under the pretense of a journey and concealed himself with his daughter in an obscure part of Paris. Felix conducted the fugitives through France to Lyons, and across Mont-Cenis to Leghorn, where the merchant had decided to wait for a favorable opportunity of passing into some part of the Turkish dominions. Safi resolved to remain with her father until the moment of his departure, before which time the Turk renewed his promise that she should be united to his deliverer, and Felix remained with them in expectation of that event. And in the meantime he enjoyed the society of the Arabian, who exhibited towards him the simplest and tenderest affection. They conversed with one another through means of an interpreter, and sometimes with the interpretation of looks, and Safi sang to him the divine airs of her native country.
Let me tell you that this song is perfect for, like, this next month.
Yeah, I know what's coming.
Turk
I
allowed
don't
this
know the name of
intimacy.
the song, though.
I feel like I should turn up the music then. Hold on, I just peeked. Hold on. I feel like I should turn up the music then so people can hear it on my end. No, I'm gonna leave it where it is. We're fine. Okay. The Turk allowed this intimacy to take place and encouraged the hopes of the youthful lovers, while in his heart he had formed far other plans. He loathed the idea that his daughter should be united to a Christian, but he feared the resentment of Felix if she should appear lukewarm, for he knew that he was still in the power of his deliverer, if he should choose to betray him to the Italian state which they inhabited. He revolved 1,000 plans by which he should be enabled to prolong the deceit until it might be no longer necessary, and secretly to take his daughter with him when he departed. His plans were greatly facilitated by the news which arrived from Paris.
The government of France were greatly enraged at the escape of their victim and spared no pains to detect and punish his deliverer. The plot of Felix was quickly discovered, and De Lacy and Agatha were thrown into prison. The news reached Felix and roused him from his dream of pleasure. His blind and aged father and his gentle sister lay in a noisome dungeon, while he enjoyed the free air and the society of her whom he loved. This idea was torture to him. He quickly arranged with the Turk that if the latter should find a favorable opportunity for escape before Felix could return to Italy, Safi should remain as Border? Is that the word? Not barter?
Yeah.
Border? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Like
A
someone
was
who
throwing me
boards.
off a little bit. Yeah.
Room and board.
A board, yeah, border. At a convent at Leghorn, and then, quitting the lovely Arabian, he hastened to Paris and delivered himself up to the vengeance of the law, hoping to free De Lacy and Agatha by this proceeding. He did not succeed. They remained confined for 5 months before trial took place, the result of which deprived them of their fortune and condemned them to a perpetual exile from their native country.
They found a miserable asylum in the cottage in Germany, where I discovered them. Felix soon learned that the treacherous Turk, for whom he and his family endured such unheard of oppression, on discovering that his deliverer was thus reduced to poverty and impotence, became a traitor to good feeling and honor, and had quitted Italy with his daughter, insultingly sending Felix a pittance of money to aid him, as he said, in some plan of future maintenance. Such were the events that preyed on the heart of Felix and rendered him, when I first saw him, and the most miserable of his family. He could have endured poverty, and when this distress had been the meed of his virtue, he would have gloried in it. But the ingratitude of the Turk and the loss of his beloved Safi were misfortunes more bitter and irreparable. The arrival of the Arabian now infused new life into his soul.
Oh, that's why he was all sad. That makes sense.
So for some reason I thought Felix was like a little kid, but now it doesn't seem quite that way. If he was able to help do some stuff with the release of the father.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. When the news reached Leghorn that Felix was deprived of his wealth and rank, the merchant commanded his daughter to think no more of her lover, but to prepare to return with him to her native country. The generous nature of Safi was outraged by this command. She attempted to expostulate with her father, but he left her angrily, reiterating his tyrannical mandate. A few days after, the Turk entered his daughter's apartment and told her hastily that he had reason to believe that his residence at Leghorn had been divulged, and that he should speedily be delivered up to the French government. He had, consequently, hired a vessel to convey him to Constantinople, for which city he should sail in a few hours. He intended to leave his daughter under the care of a confidential servant, to follow at her leisure the greater part of his property, which had not yet arrived at Leghorn.
When alone, Safi resolved in her own mind the plan of conduct that would become her to pursue in this emergency. A residence in Turkey was abhorrent to her. Her religion and feelings were alike adverse to it. By some papers of her father's, which fell into her hands, she heard of the exile of her lover and learnt that the name of the spot where he had resided. She hesitated some time, but at length she formed her determination. Taking with her some jewels that belonged to her and a small sum of money, she quitted Italy with an attendant, a native of Leghorn, but understood the common language of Turkey, and departed for Germany.
You're really busting up at this music. I believe it is Swan Lake. I think this whole thing is Swan Lake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She arrived in safety at a town about 20 leagues from the cottage of De Lacy, when her attendant fell dangerously ill. Safi nursed her with the most devoted affection, but the poor girl died, and the Arabian was left alone, unacquainted with the language of the country, and utterly ignored of the customs. Sorry. Let's go back. The poor girl died, and the Arabian was left alone, unacquainted with the language of the country, and utterly ignorant of the customs of the world. She fell, however, into good hands. The Italian had mentioned the name of the spot for which they were bound, and after her death, the woman of the house in which they had lived took care that Safi should arrive in safety at the cottage of her lover. I'll continue for these first two paragraphs. Chapter 7. Such was the history of my beloved cottagers. It impressed me deeply. I learned from the views of social life which it developed to admire their virtues and to deprecate the vices of mankind. As yet I looked upon crime as a distant evil, Benevolence and generosity were ever present before me, inciting within me a desire to become an actor in the busy scene where so many admirable qualities were called forth and displayed. But in giving an account of the progress of my intellect, I must not omit a circumstance which occurred in the beginning of the month of August of the same year.
One night, during my accustomed visit to the neighboring wood, where I collected my own food and brought home firing for my protectors, I found on the ground a leathern portmanteau containing several articles of dress and some books. I eagerly seized the prize and returned with it to my hovel. Fortunately, the books were written in the language, the elements of which I had acquired at the cottage. They consisted of Paradise Lost, a volume of Plutarch's Lives, and The Sorrows of Werther. Possession of these treasures gave me extreme delight. I now continually studied and exercised my mind upon these histories, whilst my friends were employed in their ordinary occupations.
I can hardly describe to you the effect of these books. They produced in me an infinity of new images and feelings that sometimes raised me to ecstasy. Okay. But more frequently, sunk me into the lowest dejection. In The Sorrows of Werther, besides the interest of its simple and affecting stories, so many opinions are canvassed, and so many lights thrown upon what had hitherto been to me obscure subjects, that I found in it a never-ending source of speculation and astonishment. The gentle and domestic manners it described, combined with lofty sentiments and feelings which had for their object something out of self, accorded well with my experience among my projectors, and with the wants which were forever alive in my own bosom. But I thought Werther himself a more divine being than I had ever beheld or imagined. His character contained no pretension, but it sunk deep, and disquisitions upon death and suicide were calculated to fill me with wonder. I did not pretend to enter into the merits of the cage, yet I inclined towards the opinions of the hero, whose extinction I wept without precisely understanding it.
As I read, however, I applied much personally to my own feelings and condition. I found myself similar, yet at the same time strangely unlike the beings concerning whom I read, and to whose conversation I was a listener. I sympathized with and partly understood them, but I was unformed in mind. I was dependent on none and related to none. The path of my departure was free, and there was none to lament my annihilation. My person was hideous and my stature gigantic. What did this mean? Who was I? What was I? Whence did I come? What was my destination? These questions continually recurred, but I was unable to solve them.
The volume of Plutarch's Lives which I possessed contained the histories of the first founders of the ancient republics. This book had a far different effect upon me from The Sorrows of Werther. I learned from Werther's imaginations despondency and gloom, but Plutarch taught me high thoughts. He elevated me above the wretched sphere of my own reflections, to admire and love the heroes of past ages. Many things I read surpassed my understanding and experience. I had a very confused knowledge of kingdoms, wide extensive country, mighty rivers, and boundless seas. But I was perfectly unacquainted with towns and large assemblages of men. The cottage of my protectors had been the only school in which had studied human nature, but this book developed new and mightier scenes of action. I read of men concerned in public affairs governing or massacring their species. I felt the greatest ardor for virtue rise within me, and abhorrence for vice, as far as I understood the signification of those terms, relative as they were, as I applied them to pleasure and pain alone. Induced by these feelings, I was of course led to admire peaceful lawgivers, Numa, Solon, and Lycurgus, in preference to Romulus and Theseus.
Have you heard of the ship Theseus before?
The patriarchal lives of my protectors caused these impressions to take a firm hold on my mind. Perhaps, if my first introduction to humanity had been made by a younger soldier, burning for glory and slaughter, I should have been imbued with different sensations.
But Paradise Lost excited different and far deeper emotions. I read it as I had read the other volumes which had fallen into my hands as a true history. It moved every feeling of wonder and awe that the picture of an omnipotent God wearing his creatures was capable of exciting. I often referred the several situations as their similarity struck me to my own. Like Adam, I was created apparently united by no link to any other being in existence, but his state was far different from mine in every other respect. He had come forth from the hands of God, a perfect creature, happy and prosperous, guarded by the special care of his creator. He was allowed to converse with and acquire knowledge from beings of a superior nature, but I was wretched, helpless, and alone. Many times I considered Satan as the bitter emblem of my condition, for often, like him, when I viewed the bliss of my protectors, the bitter gall of envy rose within me.
Another circumstance strengthened and confirmed these feelings. Soon after my arrival in the hovel, I discovered some papers in the pocket of the dress which I had taken from your laboratory. At first, I had neglected them. But now that I was able to decipher the characters in which they were written, I began to study them with diligence. It was your journal of the 4 months that preceded my creation. You minutely described in these papers every step you took in the progress of your work. This history was mingled with accounts of domestic occurrences. You, doubtless, recollect these papers. Here they are. Everything is related in them which bears reference to my accursed origin. The whole detail of that series of disgusting circumstances which produced it is set in view. The minutest description of my odious and loathsome person is given in language which painted your own horrors and rendered me The minutest description of my odious and loathsome person is given in language which painted your own horrors and rendered mine ineffaceable. I sickened as I read. Hateful day when I received life, I exclaimed in agony. Cursed creator! Why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned away from me in disgust? God in pity made man beautiful and alluring after his own image, but my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid from its very resemblance. Satan had his companions, fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and detested.
These were the reflections of my hours of despondency and solitude. But when I contemplated the virtues of the cottagers, their amiable and benevolent dispositions, I persuaded myself that when they should become acquainted with my admiration for their virtues, or of their virtues, they would compassionate me and overlook my personal deformity. Could they turn from their door one, however monstrous, who solicited their compassion and friendship? I resolved, at least, not to despair, but in every way to fit myself for an interview with them which would decide my fate. I postponed this attempt for some months longer, for the importance attached to its success inspired me with a dread lest it should fail. Besides, I found that my understanding improved so much with every day's experience that I was unwilling to commence this undertaking until a few more months should have added to my wisdom.
Several changes, in the meantime, took place in the cottage. The presence of Safi diffused happiness amongst its inhabitants, and I also found the greater degree of plenty reigned there. Felix and Agatha spent more time in amusement and conversation, and were assisted in their labors by servants. They did not appear rich, but they were contented and happy. Their feelings were serene and peaceful, while mine became every day more tumultuous. Yeah, I got there.
Yeah.
Increase of knowledge only discovered to me more clarity what a wretched outcast I was. I cherished hope, it is true, but it vanished when I beheld my person reflected in water, or my shadow in the moonshine. Even as that frail image and that inconstant shade.
I endeavored to crush these fears and to fortify myself for the trial which in a few months I resolved to undergo. And sometimes I allowed my thoughts, unchecked by reason, to ramble in the fields of paradise, and dared to fancy amiable and lovely creatures sympathizing with my feelings and cheering my gloom. Their angelic countenances breathed smiles of consolation. But it was all a dream. No Eve soothed my sorrows, or shared my thoughts. I was alone. I remembered Adam's supplication to his creator. But where was mine? He had abandoned me. And in the bitterness of my heart, I cursed him. Should I continue? Was that a short paragraph? Kind of was, right?
Well, how I'm considering it, I don't know if we want to establish ground rules. For me, if it's 3 lines or less, that's considered short. If it's 4 lines or more, I would consider that being more of a longer paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been going with too.
But then again, it's just
I'm just like uninformed, you guys. You have like some sort of secret telepathic language. I'm not.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I'm on the web version, and the web version, like I have. Check this out. Like, they look huge. Like the one you did was 5 lines. I endeavored to crush these fears. So check this out. I'm gonna post this on the.
Yeah, mine's 6 lines for me. I just have it that way so like I can put like the text on full screen on my computer, but when it's up on stream, it's readable for other people, legible, I guess, for other people too.
Okay. Yeah, that was 5 lines for me. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's how mine looks like.
Baljeet, continue on.
Hold on 1 second.
Feel like a trapeze artist.
If you want to keep reading for right now, Sitil, I can pick up the next one after this.
Okay. Autumn passed
thanks.
thus. I saw with surprise and grief the leaves decay and fall, and nature again assumed the barren and bleak, that's the word, bleak appearance it had worn when I first beheld the woods and the lovely moon. Yet I did not heed the bleakness of the weather. I was better fitted by my confirmation of the endurance of the cold than the heat. But my chief delights were the sight of the flowers, the birds, and all the gay apparel of summer. When those deserted me, I turned with more attention towards the cottagers. Their happiness was not increased by the absence of summer. They loved and sympathized with one another, and their joys, depending on each other, were not interrupted by the casualties that took place around them. The more I saw of them, the greater became my desire to claim their protection and kindness. My heart yearned to be known and loved by these amiable creatures. To see their sweet looks turned towards me with affection was the utmost limit of my ambition. I dared not think that they would turn them from me with disdain and horror. The poor that stopped at their door were never driven away. I asked, it is true, for the greater treasures than a little food or rest. I required kindness and sympathy, but I did not believe myself utterly unworthy of it. I guess Baljeet is still away. Mauricio, would you like to continue on?
Oh, sorry. I was talking and then I realized that my microphone was still up.
Oh.
So my wife was trying to talk to me about because she's going to bed. She's trying to talk to me about the cat, and I did not realize the microphone was still flipped up.
What's going on with the cat?
The cat's just been crazy. So the living room light's gonna go off
What else is new? Crazy cat? Oh, like I haven't heard that one before.
I feel like my cat gives off orange cat vibes from what I've seen at night. But he's just a nocturnal creature. I don't know.
Orange cat
Mhm.
vibes.
Orange cat vibes. See, I feel like they're the crazier ones from. Like, I don't know.
They
I've only
do
had
say
two
tabbies are crazy, but I'm not I'm not one to
convinced.
be prejudiced against cats, okay?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a
No,
fair point.
those Siamese cats though from the Aristocrats. No, from Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp.
Those ones are assholes.
Yeah.
Pompous. Yeah. It's so
Hey,
funny
we
how
have
like yeah, it's so funny how like, you know, the silhouettes of like animals and like how they carry themselves. You know, like the ass being stubborn, right? And stuff like that.
Bum, bum, bum.
Just like how have we gotten to that mode of like stereotyping animals, right? It's kind of
I don't
effed
know.
up.
I don't care what you say. Huskies are loud, okay? They yell, and they yell loud, okay?
I mean,
They?
I'm sure that's a thing they do. So do other
Give me a
dogs.
second. No, give me a second.
Is there
Are
gonna
you
be a
gonna
video you're
share
gonna
a
share?
video?
Yes.
I gotta learn so much about huskies.
Oh, I thought Baljeet was gonna continue.
Oh yeah, I can. Okay, I was waiting for the video too. Okay, so the winter advance.
No, I meant with the music.
Oh. Oh, you thought it was gonna go da 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 da
Yes.
da
Yeah. I thought we were waiting for the video still. Oh, he's got the video here.
I'm
Okay.
posting it, yes.
Let me.
Are you gonna pull it up on stream?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on
yeah,
stream.
in stream. Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up.
Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me stop streaming.
Yeah, just send me
Here,
the link.
Yeah.
And I'll cut this music off while we watch the video.
Okay.
As soon as you send the video, that is.
There it is.
There it is. Okay.
There it is.
Intermission.
I gotta watch this husky video.
Yeah, we gotta watch this. Intermission. Entertainment. Husky throws ultimate temper tantrum from Viral Hog.
Hmm.
Blue. Who did this? Blue, come here. Come here. Who did this? Blue, sit down. No, you're a bad boy. Blue, stop. Nobody. Blue, listen. Blue, hush, please. Blue, stop yelling. Blue,
Oh my god.
Really?
I like how he looks away, just like, you know.
Bad
Not
boy.
even-
Sit.
Doesn't even look like he's upset. He's just doing it for the attention.
Yeah.
Bad boy.
You love me, right?
Why is your
Yeah,
tail
he's still wagging his tail and shit. That's funny.
Why is your
Click on
tail
that
wagging?
chonky one. Click on that chonky one. Go down.
This
See?
one?
No, all the way to the left.
Are
Oh,
you showing the
man.
people the stream, or are you just giving them the audio, Satil?
No, I'm showing them the stream. Wow, that music though. What? Is that an original composition? Wow.
you, you know how Manny
Look,
has
George Michael.
wolf ragtime? That's what that reminds me of.
What are you saying now, Mauricio?
On Manny's stream, there's like a redeem for like dog ragtime or wolf ragtime or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what that reminds me of.
Oh, okay. What was Mauricio saying?
Oh, hey, look, George Michael.
Yeah, there he is.
In
It's my favorite
4K.
Wham song.
In 4K.
That's awesome. All right. Onward.
Oh,
Hey, what did I tell you about huskies? I wasn't lying.
This is perfect intermission music for that too, I feel like. Alright, let me bring the book back up on stream here.
Oh.
That was a tangent. I'm gonna do marker here, I guess. I can't put stream markers. Stupid. Oh well, it's not working.
Oh my goodness.
There's been some really good moments on this stream, I think. What with the music as well, I think is fitting really, really well with our reading. Oh my god, you guys are just cracking up over there. Are we gonna be able to continue?
I don't know. I'm gonna try to. It reminds me though, on Saturdays at noon we have like a what is it? A weather system warning that comes on just like to test it out. And our dog howls at it, and just like every weekend we howl at 12 o'clock with our dog.
Oh yeah!
Yeah.
You've told me about that.
There's videos
That's
on
so
TikTok
funny.
to prove it as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
You guys have fun family life, I think.
We're goofy, that's for sure.
Yeah. I want to be part of Baljeet's family.
You are.
Can Fudge and I move in?
You guys might have to share the office space. We gotta clear
Okay.
that out first. Otherwise,
That's
you guys are
fine.
gonna be sleeping on top of like a bunch of stuff.
All right.
Oh man.
But yeah. Alright, let's see.
Winter.
The winter advanced, and an entire revolution of the seasons had taken place since I awoke into life. That's one way of putting that. My attention at this time was solely directed towards my plan of introducing myself into the cottage of my protectors. I revolved many projects, but that on which I had finally fixed was to enter the dwelling when the blind old man should be alone. I had sagacity enough to discover that the unnatural hideousness of my person was the chief object of horror with those who had formerly beheld me. My voice, although harsh, had nothing terrible in it. I thought, therefore, that if, in the absence of his children, I could gain the goodwill and mediation of the old DeLacy, I might, by his means, be tolerated by younger protectors.
Wait. There we go. Sorry, I was clicked out of the window because we had to do the YouTube thing. Okay. Wait.
Oh,
It's
that's
Mauricio's
Fudge.
turn.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I started recording in OBS. Oops.
Oops, daisy. Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, go. I made a random video in OBS. That
I'm
was
on
beautiful.
one day, right?
Yeah, one day when the sun.
Yeah. One day, when the sun shone on the red leaves that strewed on the ground and diffused cheerfulness, although it denied warmth, Safi, Agatha, and Felix departed on a long country walk, and the old man, at his own desire, was left alone in the cottage. When his children had departed, he took up his guitar and played several mournful but sweet airs, more sweet and mournful than I had ever heard him play before. At first, his countenance was illuminated with pleasure, but, as he continued, thoughtfulness and sadness succeeded. At length, laying aside the instrument, he sat absorbed in reflection.
My heart beat quick. This was the hour and moment of trial, which would decide my hopes or realize my fears. The servants were gone to a neighboring fair. All was silent in and around the cottage. It was an excellent opportunity. Yet, when I proceeded to execute my plan, my limbs failed me. You guys still hear the music? Sorry.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still going.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought I minimized it. Yet, when I proceeded to execute my plan, my limbs failed me and I sunk to the ground. Again I rose, and exerting all the firmness of which I was the master... Oh, sorry. That's a weird connotation. Okay. Again I rose, and exerting all the firmness of which I was master, removed the planks which I had placed before my hovel to conceal my retreat. The fresh air revived me, and with renewed determination, I approached the door of their cottage.
I knocked. "Who is there?" said the old man. "Come in." I entered. "Pardon this intrusion," said I. "I am a traveler in want of a little rest. You would greatly oblige me if you would allow me to remain a few minutes before the fire." "Enter," said De Lacy, "and I will try in what manner I can relieve your want. But unfortunately, my children are from home. And as I am blind, I am afraid I shall find it difficult to procure food for you."
Mercy?
Oh, my bad. I read that line and my mic was off.
Oh.
Do not trouble yourself, my kind host. I have food. It is warmth and rest only that I need. I sat down, and a silence ensued. I knew that every minute was precious to me, yet I remained irresolute in what manner to commence the interview when the old man addressed me. "By your language, stranger, I suppose you are my countryman. Are you French?" "No. But I was educated by a French family and understand that language only. And now, going to claim the protection of some friends who I sincerely love, and of whose favor I have some hopes."
Are these Germans? No, they are French, but let us change the subject. I am an unfortunate and deserted creature. I look around, and I have no relation or friend upon earth. These amiable people to whom I go have never seen me, and know little of me. I am full of fears, for if I fail there, I am an outcast in the world forever. Do not despair to be friendless. It is indeed to be unfortunate, but the hearts of men, when unprejudiced by any obvious self-interest, are full of brotherly love and charity. Rely therefore on your hopes, and if these friends are good and amiable, do not despair.
"They are kind. They are the most excellent creatures in the world. But unfortunately, they are prejudiced against me. I have good dispositions. My life has been hitherto harmless and in some degree beneficial. But a fatal prejudice clouds their eyes, and where they ought to see a feeling and kind friend, they behold only a detestable monster. That is indeed unfortunate. But if you are really blameless, cannot you undeceive them?"
I am about to undertake that task, and it is on that account that I feel so many overwhelming terrors. I tenderly love these friends. I have, unknown to them, been for many months in the habits of daily kindness towards them. But they believe that I wish to injure them, and it is that prejudice which I wish to overcome. Where do these friends reside? Near this spot. The old man paused and continued. If you will, unreservedly confide to me the particulars of your tale, I perhaps may be of use in undeceiving them. I am blind and cannot judge of your countenance, but there is something in your words which persuades me that you are sincere. I am poor and in exile, but it will afford me true pleasure to be in any way serviceable to a human creature. Excellent,
Excellent.
man.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to read this last one.
Sure.
I thank you and accept your generous offer. You raise me from the dust by this kindness, and I trust that by your aid I shall not be driven from the society and sympathy of your fellow creatures.
Heaven forbid, even if you were really criminal, for that can only drive you to desperation and not instigate you to virtue. I am also unfortunate. I and my family have been condemned, although innocent. Judge, therefore, if I do not feel for your misfortunes. How can I thank you, my best friend and only benefactor? From your lips first I have heard the voice of kindness directed towards me. I shall forever be grateful. And your present humanity assures me of success with those friends whom I am on the point of meeting. May I know the names and residence of those friends?
I paused. This, I thought, was the moment of decision, which was to rob me of or bestow happiness on me forever. I struggled vainly for firmness sufficient to answer him, but the effort destroyed all my remaining strength. I sank on a chair and sobbed aloud. At that moment, I heard the steps of my younger protectors. I had not a moment to lose, but seizing the hand of the old man, I cried, "Now is the time. Save and protect me. You and your family are the friends whom I seek. Do not you desert me in the hour of trial." "Great God!" exclaimed the old man. "Who are you?"
That instant, the cottage door was opened and Felix, Safi, and Agatha entered. Who can describe their horror and consternation on beholding me? Agatha fainted and Safi, unable to attend to her friend, rushed out of the cottage. Felix darted forward and with supernatural force tore me from his father, to whose knees I clung. In a transport of fury, he dashed me to the ground and struck me violently with a stick. I could have torn him limb from limb as the lion rends the antelope, but my heart sunk within me as with bitter sickness, and I refrained. I saw him on the point of repeating his blow when, overcome by pain and anguish, I quitted the cottage and in the general tumult escaped unperceived to my hovel.
That is
We only
some-
have 2 more chapters left
Yeah.
for volume 2.
Yeah, that's intense. We should finish volume 2. I feel like we're getting a good rhythm.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, you would think that, like, the creature, you know, would be crying and, like, in pain and all this stuff. And, like, they would realize he would not be fighting back, you know? Like, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think that just speaks more to I mean what the monster I don't want to say the monster, the creature like realizes about himself, and so like he took the opportunity to try to go where he knew he'd be least judged.
Yeah.
And so
It
I
was
think
his own
that just
shame
goes to
that
show
made him rush away, right? You know?
I think that just goes to show just how deformed he is, because I mean I don't think it's been clearly described in this. I mean there's been like some description like from like the initial creation, just like about like the way his eyes looked, but beyond that, like just beyond him having like a larger stature than most humans and like the I guess messed up looking eyes, nothing else like really sticks out to me as being sticks out as being like something that you would like initially want to like harm it, you know?
Right.
And so I feel like that's like intentionally left up to the imagination of how horrible it must be like to just look at the creature. So I don't.
Even then, I feel like, you know, the perceptions back then were so different. I mean, if we were to look upon someone who is deformed nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like attitudes would be much different. You
That's
know?
true.
100%.
I mean, yeah. I don't think I would go out of my way to harm someone else just because they
No,
look.
I mean, yeah, in general, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how approaching with understanding has changed over the years. And like that in last stream I was talking about how science at this point, basically they were creating the science of racial profiling, right? You know, and by features and things like that, which is totally a pseudoscience, and you know, we've condemned it since then, of course. But this is a practice that was, you know, put into the minds of public officials and things like that up until like shit. I feel like shit's going on right now that actually, you know, kind of continues this, unfortunately. And unfortunately has persisted, these prejudices, with the way people look and things like that. And unfounded fears and prejudices like that. It's unfortunate. And it's a slippery slope. But in general, you know, we obviously know that's not right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it's wild to think how much attitudes have changed, and yet we still persist with prejudice and violence in the world to this day. A lot of humanity. Whose turn is it?
Yours, actually.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yes, because I read that last one.
Yeah. Chapter 8. Cursed Creator. Why did I live? Why in that instant did I not extinguish the spark of existence which you had so wantonly bestowed? I know not. Despair had not yet taken possession of me. My feelings were those of rage and revenge. I could with pleasure have destroyed the cottage and its inhabitants, and have glutted myself with their shrieks and misery. When night came, I quitted my retreat and wandered into the wood, and now no longer restrained by the fear of discovery, I gave vent to my anguish in fearful howlings. I was like a wild beast that had broken the toils, destroying the objects that had obstructed me, and ranging through the wood with a stag-like swiftness. Oh, what a miserable thought. What a miserable night I passed. The cold stars shone in mockery, and the bare trees waved their branches above me. Now and then, the sweet voice of a bird burst forth amidst the universal stillness. All save I were at rest or in enjoyment. I, like the archfiend, bore a hell within me, and finding myself unsympathized with, wished to tear up the trees, spread havoc and destruction around me, and then to have sat down and enjoyed the rain.
But this was a luxury of sensation that could not endure. I became fatigued with excess of bodily exertion and sank on the damp grass in the sick impotence of despair. There was none among the myriad of men who existed who would pity or assist me, and should I feel kindness toward my enemies? No. From that moment, I declared everlasting war against the species, and more than all, against him who had formed me and sent me forth to this insupportable misery. The sun rose. I heard the voices of men, and I knew that it was impossible to return to my retreat during that day. Accordingly, I hid myself in some thick underwood, determining to devote the ensuing hours to reflection on my situation.
The pleasant sunshine and the pure air of the day restored me to some degree of tranquility. And when I considered what had passed at the cottage, I could not help believing that I had been too hasty in my conclusions. I had certainly acted imprudently. It was apparent that my conversation had interested the father in my behalf, and I was a fool in having exposed my person to the horror of his children. I ought to have familiarized the old De Lacy to me, and by degrees have discovered myself to the rest of his family, when they should have been prepared for my approach. But I did not believe my errors to be irretrievable, and after much consideration, I resolved to return to the cottage, seek the old man, and by my representations win him to my party.
These thoughts calmed me, and in the afternoon, I sank into a profound sleep. But the fever of my blood did not allow me to be visited by peaceful dreams. The horrible scene of the preceding day was forever acting before my eyes. The females were flying, and the enraged Felix tearing me from his father's feet. I awoke exhausted, and finding that it was already night, I crept forth from my hiding place and went in search of food. When my hunger was appeased, I directed my steps toward the well-known path that conducted to the cottage. All there was at peace. I crept into my hovel, and remained in silent expectation of the accustomed hour when the family arose. That hour passed. The sun mounted high in the heavens, but the cottagers did not appear. I trembled violently, apprehending some dreadful misfortune. Inside of the cottage was dark, and I heard no motion. I cannot describe the agony of this suspense.
Presently, 2 countrymen passed by, but pausing near the cottage, they entered into conversation, using violent gesticulations. But I did not understand what they said, as they spoke the language of their country, which differed from that of my protectors. Soon after, however, Felix approached with another man. I was surprised, as I knew that he had not quitted the cottage that morning, and waited anxiously to discover from his discourse the meaning of these unusual appearances.
Mauricio?
Is your mic off?
Sorry, I'm lost.
Mm-hmm.
What did you just read?
Uh,
Like,
His
what's the last?
discourse.
Okay,
His
okay,
discourse,
okay,
the meaning of
yes,
these.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
Okay. Do you consider, said his companion to him, that you will be obliged to pay 3 months' rent and to lose the produce of your garden? I do not wish to take any unfair advantage, but I beg therefore that you will take some days to consider of your determination. It is utterly useless, replied Felix. We can never again inhabit your cottage. The life of my father is in the greatest danger, owing to the dreadful circumstance that I have related. My wife and my sister will never recover their horror. I entreat you not to reason with me anymore. Take possession of your tenement and let me fly from this place. Felix trembled violently as he said this. He and his companion entered the cottage, in which they remained for a few minutes and then departed. I never saw any of the family of De Lacy more.
that is so freaking sad.
Mm-hmm.
Heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
I continued for the remainder of the day in my hovel in a state of utter and stupid despair. My protectors had departed, and had broken the only link that held me to the world. For the first time, the feelings of revenge and hatred filled my bosom, and I did not strive to control them, but allowing myself to be borne away by the stream, I bent my mind towards injury and death, when I thought of my friends, of the mild voice of DeLacy, the gentle eyes of Agatha, and the exquisite booty.
I mean,
Exquisite beauty of the Arabian. These thoughts vanished, and a gush of tears somewhat soothed me. But, again, when I reflected that they had spurned and deserted me, anger returned, a rage of anger, and unable to injure any human thing. I turned my fury towards inanimate objects. As night advanced, I placed a variety of combustibles around the cottage, and after having destroyed every vestige of cultivation in the garden, I waited with forced impatience until the moon had sunk to my... I waited with forced impatience until the moon had sunk to commence my operations.
as the night advanced, a fierce wind arose from the woods and quickly dispersed the clouds that had loitered in the heavens. The blast tore along like a mighty avalanche and produced a kind of insanity in my spirits that burst all bounds of reason and reflection. I lighted the dry branch of a tree and danced with fury around the devoted cottage, my eyes still fixed on the western horizon, the edge of which the moon nearly touched. A part of its orb was at length hid, and I waved my brand, sunk, and with a loud scream, I fired the straw and heath and bushes which I had collected. The wind fanned the fire, and the cottage was quickly enveloped by the flames, which clung to it and licked it with the forked and destroying tongues.
As soon as I was convinced that no assistance could save any part of the habitation, I quitted the scene and sought for refuge in the woods. And now, with the world before me, whither should I bend my steps? I resolved to fly far from the scene of my misfortunes. But to me, hated and despised, every country must be equally horrible. At length, the thought of you crossed my mind. I learned from your papers that you were my father, my creator. And to whom could I apply with more fitness than to him who had given me life? Among the lessons that Felix had bestowed upon Safi, geography had not been omitted. I had learned from these things the relative situations of the different countries of the earth. You had mentioned Geneva as the name of your native town, and towards this place I resolved to proceed.
But how was I to direct myself? I knew that I must travel in a southwesterly direction to reach my destination, but the sun was my only guide. I did not know the names of the towns that I was to pass through, nor could I ask information from a single human being. But I did not despair. From you only I could hope for succor, although towards you I felt no sentiment but that of hatred. Unfeeling, heartless creator, you had endowed me with perceptions and passions, and then cast me abroad an object for the scorn and horror of mankind. But on you only had I any claim for pity and redress, and from you I determined to seek that justice which I vainly attempted to gain from any other being that wore the human form.
My travels were long, and the sufferings I endured intense. It was late in autumn when I quitted the district where I had so long resided. I traveled only at night, fearful of encountering the visage of a human being. Nature decayed around me, and the sun became heatless. Rain and snow poured around me. Mighty rivers were frozen. The surface of the earth was hard and chill and bare, and I found no shelter. Oh, earth! How often did I imprecate curses on the cause of my being. The mildness of my nature had fled, and all within me was turned to gall and bitterness. The nearer I approached your habitation, the more deeply did I feel the spirit of revenge enkindled in my heart. Snow fell, and the waters were hardened, but I rested not. A few incidents now and then directed me, and I possessed a map of the country. But I often wandered wide from my path. The agony of my feeling allowed me no respite. No incident occurred from which my rage and misery could not extract its food, but a circumstance that happened when I arrived on the confines of Switzerland, when the sun had recovered its warmth, and the earth again began to look green, confirmed, in a special manner, bitterness and horror of my feelings.
I generally rested during the day and traveled only when I was secured by night from the view of man. One morning, however, finding that my path lay through a deep wood, I ventured to continue my journey after the sun had risen. The day, which was one of the first of spring, cheered even me by the loveliness of its sunshine and the balminess of the air. I felt emotions of gentleness and pleasure that I had long appeared dead revive within me. Half surprised by the novelty of these sensations, I allowed myself to be borne away by them, and forgetting my solitude and deformity, dared to be happy. Soft tears again bedewed my cheeks, and I even raised my humid eyes with thankfulness towards the blessed sun which bestowed such joy upon me.
I continued to wind among the paths of the wood until I came to its boundary, which was skirted by a deep and rapid river into which many of the trees bent their branches, now budding with the fresh spring. Here I paused, not exactly knowing what path to pursue, when I heard the sound of voices that induced me to conceal myself under the shade of a cypress. I was scarcely hid when a young girl came running towards the spot where I concealed, laughing as if she ran from someone in sport. She continued her course along the precipitous sides of the river, when suddenly her foot slipped, and she fell into the rapid stream. I rushed from my hiding place, and with extreme labor from the current saved her and dragged her to shore. She was senseless, and I endeavored by every means in my power to restore animation, when I was suddenly interrupted by the approach of a rustic, who was probably a person from whom she had playfully fled. On seeing me, he darted towards me, and tearing the girl from my arms, hastened towards the deeper parts of the wood. I followed speedily, I hardly knew why, but when the man saw me draw near, he aimed a gun which he carried at my body and fired. I sunk to the ground, and my injurer, with increased swiftness, escaped into the wood.
This was then the reward of my benevolence. I had saved a human being from destruction, and as a recompense, I am now writhed under the miserable pain of a wound which shattered the flesh and bone. The feelings of kindness and gentleness which I had entertained but a few moments before gave place to hellish rage and gnashing of teeth. Inflamed by pain, I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind. But the agony of my wound overcame me, my pulses paused, and I fainted. For some weeks I led a miserable life in the woods, endeavoring to cure the wound which I had received. The ball had entered my shoulder, and I knew not whether it had remained there or passed through. At any rate, I had no means of extracting it. My sufferings were augmented by my sufferings were augmented also by the oppressive sense of the injustice and ingratitude of their infliction. My daily vows arose for revenge, a deep and deadly revenge, such as would alone compensate for those outrages and anguish I had endured. I like the reference. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I feel like hellish rage and gnashing of teeth. I feel like it's a reference to Revelation for some reason in the Bible. don't know why that is.
I'm unfamiliar, so if you could explain to me who...
Yeah.
I don't know my religious texts. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that well either. I just remember there was there was like a reference to a song at some point that had said like it's like the weeping and the moaning of gnashing of teeth is like it's either something that happens during Revelation or it's like that's like ends during Revelation or something along those lines. Let me look and see real quick. Gnashing of Bible. Oh, that's in Luke.
What up, Luke?
Is that in Revelation? Let me see. Bible and Revelation. There will be weeping there and the gnashing of teeth. We see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God. But you yourselves, what's the rest of that? But you yourselves, what? Ooh, I don't want to read the whole thing. Not right now, anyway.
Read the whole Bible right now.
The whole thing. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And the centurion, Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you as you..." No, I don't know. What was it that...
No. I was trying to run the cable down this way and I was having the hardest time.
The cable?
The cable?
No, that was me.
Ah.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, no, you're good.
But yeah, I was not able to find what I thought it was. I mean, it's something biblical, for sure. I just couldn't find like specifically what I thought it was. I'll save a note for that next time.
Yeah. It'll come up next time.
Yeah.
Mauricio, would you like to continue?
I was just wondering if you guys were done, that's why. Alright, here we go. After some weeks, my wound healed, and I continued my journey. The labors I endured were no longer to be alleviated by the bright sun or the gentle breezes of spring. All joy was but a mockery, which insulted my desolate state and made me feel more painfully that I was not made for the enjoyment of pleasure. But my toils now drew near a close, and 2 months from this time, I reached the environs of Geneva. It was everything. It was evening. It was evening when I arrived.
It was everything I hoped it to be.
Everything when I arrived. It was everything.
And everything was great. The end.
It was evening when I arrived, and I retired to a hiding place among the fields that surrounded to meditate in what manner I should apply to you. I was oppressed by fatigue and hunger, and far too unhappy to enjoy the gentle breezes of the evening, or the prospect of the sun setting behind the stupendous mountains of Jura.
At this time, a slight sleep relieved me from the pain of reflection, which was disturbed by the approach of a beautiful child, who came running into the recess I had chosen with all the sportiness of infancy. Suddenly, as I gazed on him, an idea seized me that this little creature was unprejudiced, and had lived too short a time to have imbibed a horror of deformity. If, therefore, I could seize him and educate him as my companion and friend, I would not be so desolate in this peopled earth. Urged by this impulse, I seized on the boy as he passed, and drew him towards me. As soon as he beheld my form, he placed his hands before my eyes, and uttered a shrill scream. I drew his hand forcibly from his face and said, "Child, what is the meaning of this? I do not intend to hurt you. Listen to me."
Struggled violently. "Let me go," he cried. "Monster! Ugly wretch! You wish to eat me and tear me to pieces. You are an ogre. Let me go, or I will tell my papa." "Boy, you will never see your father again. You must come with me." Hideous monster, let me go. My papa is a cynic. He is Monsieur Frankenstein. He would punish you. You dare not keep me.
I go?
I think that's like 5 lines for me.
Frankenstein, you belong then to my enemy, to him towards whom I have sworn eternal revenge. You shall be my first victim. The child struggled and loaded me with epithets which carried despair to my heart. I grasped his throat to silence him, and in a moment he lay dead at my feet. I gazed on my victim, and my heart swelled with exaltation,
Yeah.
and hellish triumph. Clapping my hands, I exclaimed, I, too, can create desolation. My enemy is not impregnable. This death will carry despair to him, and 1,000 other miseries shall torment and destroy him.
As I fixed my eyes on the child, I saw something glittering on his breast. I took it. It was the portrait of a most lovely woman. In spite of my malignity... Malignity?
Wolf.
Anemone.
Woof.
Anemone.
Anemone.
I liked how in the middle of that you're like, oh, woof. I don't know. Malignity, I think. In spite of my malignity, it softened and attracted me. For a few moments I gazed with delight on her dark eyes, fringed by her deep lashes, and her lovely lips, but presently my rage returned. I remembered that I was forever deprived of the delights that such beautiful creatures could bestow, and that she, whose resemblance I contemplated, would, in regarding me, have changed that air of divine benignity. Oh gosh. Benignity?
So on here it says malignity. So that'd be benignity then.
Okay. Have changed the air of divine benignity to one expressive of disgust and affright.
And you wonder that such thoughts transported me with rage? I only wondered that at that moment, instead of venting my sensations and exclamations in agony. I did not rush among mankind and perish in the attempt to destroy them. While I was overcome by these feelings, I left the spot where I committed the murder and was seeking a more secluded hiding place when I perceived a woman passing near me. She was young, not indeed so beautiful as her whose portrait I held, but of an agreeable aspect and blooming in the loveliness of youth and health. Here, I thought, is one of those whose smiles are bestowed on all but me. She shall not escape. Thanks to the lessons of Felix and the sanguinary laws of man, I have learned how to work mischief. I approached her unperceived and placed the portrait securely in one of the folds of her dress.
For some days, I haunted the spot where these scenes had taken place, sometimes wishing to see you, sometimes resolved to quit the world and its miseries forever. At length, I wandered towards these mountains and have ranged through their immense recesses, consumed by a burning passion which you alone can gratify. We may not part until you have promised to comply with my requisition. I am alone and miserable. Man will not associate with me, but one as deformed and horrible as myself could not deny herself to me. My companion must be of the same species and have the same defects. This being you must create.
Whoa.
Ooh.
I gotta
My
pee.
wife was... Oh.
Make me a fuck buddy or I will kill your family, is essentially what he's saying.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Oh, dang. I'm gonna go to the restroom, too.
Okay. Be right back. And is this the last chapter in Volume 2, or...?
This is the last chapter for Volume 2, yes, and it's
Okay,
fairly
so-
short.
Okay, then it'll be a brief BRB, and then we'll finish out Volume 2 and end the stream for tonight.
Uh-huh.
Be right back.
I was like, oh, what's that?
Okay, chat, we're back. We're talking about Home Alone. Talking about holiday movies that we haven't seen. I
Transition
haven't
to
seen.
other stuff.
Yeah. Transition to a whole different direction.
A new direction.
A new direction.
There's
Oh
a
my gosh.
there's a I don't know what you call them. Connections group at the church we're trying to go to, or we've been going to, and the name of one of the groups is called New Direction. I think like the pastor runs, but I don't think he realizes like if he says it fast enough, it sounds like New Direction. And so I pointed out to one of our friends that's been going there for a while, and they just started busting out laughing about it. And I probably shouldn't have told her about it in the middle of church, but gotta live life.
Gotta
Gotta live life.
Listen. Balji is a churchgoer who lives life on the edge.
On the edge of saying inappropriate things too often. Yep.
I don't think it's a sin to enjoy yourself at church a little bit. Come on.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah. You're fine. Harmless little joke. Alright. Let us finish this volume, guys. Who's beginning? Is it me?
Yes.
Oh.
I finished off this section.
Okay.
That's crazy that it keeps happening that way.
I keep finishing off the chapters. I know, right?
Alright. Chapter 9. The being finished speaking, and fixed his looks upon me in expectation of a reply. But I was bewildered and perplexed, unable to arrange my ideas sufficiently to understand the full extent of his proposition. He continued, "You must create a female for me, with whom I can live in the interchange of those sympathies necessary for my being. This you alone can do, and I demand it of you as a right, which you must not refuse." The latter part of his tale... Yeah?
This has me thinking that he gave the monster a penis.
Well,
Function
yeah,
wanted that.
I'm sure. I don't know.
You must create a female for me. It's just like, really now? Continue though.
I'm not certain. I mean, female... Okay, so like getting into like a little bit of the gender politics thing, right? Female form is a thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a female, right? I think, same thing counts with either on the gender binary or whatever, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just
So I guess in this case,
1818. So
Yeah.
So I mean, from the monster's perspective, it would be a creature that would look like it has the same
Right.
female anatomy, but from that created new form's perspective, it would be if they had a brain of someone that perceived that they were female or identified as female. In that case,
would he be satisfied then?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You must create a female for me. We'll see.
The latter part of his tale had kindled anew in me the anger that had died away while he narrated his peaceful life among the cottagers, and as he said this, I could no longer suppress the rage that burned within me. "I do refuse it," I replied, "and no torture shall ever extort a consent from me. You may render me the most miserable of men, but you shall never make me base in my own eyes. Shall I create another like yourself, whose joint wickedness might desolate the world? Begone! I have answered you. You may torture me, but I will never consent."
"You are in the wrong," replied the fiend, "and instead of threatening, I am content to reason with you. I am malicious because I am miserable. I am not shunned and hated by all... Oh, am I not shunned and hated by all mankind? You, my creator, would tear me to pieces and triumph. Remember that, and tell me why I should pity man more than he pities me. You would not call it murder. You would call me precipitate me. If you would not call it murder if you could precipitate me into one of those ice rifts and destroy my frame, the work of your own hands. Shall I respect man when he contemns me? Contemns? Is that supposed to be condemns?
It's another form of condemn.
Gotcha. Shall I respect man when he condemns me? Let him live with me in the interchange of kindness, and instead of injury, I would bestow every benefit upon him with tears of gratitude at his acceptance, but that cannot be. The human senses are insurmountable barriers to our union. Yet mine shall not be the submission of abject slavery. I will revenge my injuries. If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear, and chiefly towards you, my archenemy, because my creator, do I swear inextinguishable hatred. Have a care. I will work at your destruction, nor finish until I desolate your heart, so that you curse the hour of your birth.
A fiendish rage animated him as he said this. His face was wrinkled into contortions too horrible for human eyes to behold. But presently, he calmed himself and proceeded. I intended to reason. This passion is detrimental to me, for you do not reflect that you are the cause of its excess. If any being felt emotions of benevolence towards me, I should return them in 100 and 100-fold. For that one creature's sakes, I would make peace with the whole kind, but I now indulge in dreams of bliss that cannot be realized. What I ask of you is reasonable and moderate. I demand a creature of another sex, but as hideous as myself. The gratification is small, but it is all that I can receive, and it shall content me. It is true, we shall be monsters, cut off from the world, but on that account we shall be more attracted to one another. Our lives will not be happy, but they will be harmless, and free from the misery I feel now. Oh, my Creator, make me happy. Let me feel gratitude towards you for one benefit. Let me see that I excite the sympathy of some existing thing. Do not deny me my request.
I was moved. I shuddered when I thought of the possible consequences of my consent, but I felt that there was some justice in his argument. His tale and the feelings he now expressed proved him to be a creature of fine sensations, and did I not, as his maker, owe him all the portion of happiness that it was in my power to bestow? He saw my change of feeling and continued, "If you consent, neither you nor any other human being shall ever see us again. I will go to the vast wilds of South America. My food is not that of man. I do not destroy the lamb and the kid to glut my appetite. Acorns and berries afford me sufficient nourishment. My companion will be of the same nature as myself, and will be content with the same fare. We shall make our bed of dried leaves. The sun will shine on us as on man, and will ripen our food. The picture I present to you is peaceful and human, and you must feel that you could deny it only in the wantonness of power and cruelty. Pitiless as you have been towards me, now see compassion in your eyes. Let me seize the favorable moment and persuade you to promise what I so ardently desire."
You propose, replied I, to fly from the habitations of man, to dwell in those wilds where the beasts of the field will be your only companions? How can you, who long for the love and sympathy of man, persevere in this exile? You will return and again seek their kindness, and you will meet with their detestation. Your evil passions will be renewed, and you will then have a companion to aid you in the task of destruction. This may not be. Yeah, I made the mistake of. So my wife had the right idea to turn the light off in the living room because the cat went to sleep out there. The problem is I walked through there to go to the bathroom, and so now he's awake again.
I love your cat.
As long as he doesn't wake up, I love him too. It's the problem is we have a baby now, and so I mean, I think she sleeps through most of it. It just depends on like what part of her sleep cycle she's in and when he decides to start doing that. But I digress.
Yeah.
This may not be. Cease to argue the point, for I cannot consent. How inconsistent are your feelings? But a moment ago, you removed my representations, and why do you again harden yourself to my complaints? I swear to you, by the earth which I inhabit, and by you that made me, that with the companion you bestow, I will quit the neighborhood of man, and dwell, as it may chance, in the most savage of places. My evil passions will have fled, for I shall meet with sympathy my life. For I shall meet with sympathy. My life will flow quietly away, and in my dying moments, I shall not curse my maker.
His words had a strange effect on me. I compassionated him, and sometimes felt a wish to console him, but when I looked upon him, I saw the filthy mass that moved and talked. My heart sickened, and my feelings were altered to those of horror and hatred. I tried to stifle these sensations. I thought that I could not sympathize with him. I had no right to withhold him from the small portion of happiness which was yet in my power to bestow. You swear, I said, to be harmless. But have you not already shewn a degree of malice that should reasonably make me distrust you? May not even this be a feint that will increase your triumph by affording a wider scope of your revenge? How's this? I thought I had moved your compassion, and yet you still refuse to bestow on me the only benefit that can soften my heart and render me harmless? If I have no ties and no affections, hatred and vice must be my portion. The love of another will destroy the cause of my crimes, and I shall become a thing of whose existence everyone will be ignorant. My vices are the children of a forced solitude that I arbor, and my virtues will necessarily arise when I live in communion with an equal. I shall feel the affections of a sensitive being and become linked to the chain of existence and events from which I am now excluded.
Did I lose my place here? Now I'm lost.
I paused some time to reflect.
Okay. Okay, somehow I ended up on the bottom of the page. My eyes wandered. I paused some time to reflect on all he had related, and the various arguments which he had employed. I thought of the promise of virtues which he had displayed on the opening of his existence, and the subsequent blight of all kindly feeling by the loathing and scorn by which his protectors had manifested towards him. His power and threats were not omitted in my calculations. A creature who could exist in the ice caves of the glaciers and hide himself from pursuit among the ridges of inaccessible precipices was a being possessing faculties. It would be vain. His powers and threats were not omitted in my calculations. A creature who could exist in the ice caves of the glaciers and hide himself from pursuit among the ridges of inaccessible precipices was a being possessing faculties it would be vain to cope with. After a long pause of reflection, I concluded that the justice due both to him and my fellow creatures demanded of me that I should comply with his request. Turning to him, therefore, I said, I consent to your demand on your solemn oath to quit Europe forever and every other place in the neighborhood of man, as soon as I shall deliver into your hands a female who will accompany you in your exile.
I swear, he cried, by the sun and by the blue sky of heaven, that if you grant my prayer, while I exist you shall never behold me again. Depart to your home and commence your labors. I shall watch their progress with unutterable anxiety, and fear not, but that when you are ready, I shall appear. Saying this, he suddenly quitted me, fearful perhaps of any change in my sentiments. I saw him descend the mountain with greater speed than the flight of an eagle, and quickly lost him among the undulations of the sea of ice.
His tale had occupied the whole day, and the sun was upon the verge of the horizon when he departed. I knew that I ought to hasten my descent towards the valley, as I should soon be encompassed in darkness. But my heart was heavy and my steps slow. The labor of winding among the little paths of the mountains and fixing my feet firmly as I advanced perplexed me, occupied as I was by the emotions which the occurrence of the day had produced. Night was far advanced. When I came to the halfway resting place and seated myself beside the fountain, the stars shone at intervals as the clouds passed over them. The dark pines rose before me, and every here and there a broken tree lay on the ground. It was a scene of wonderful solemnity, and stirred strange thoughts within me. I wept bitterly, and clasped my hands in agony. I exclaimed, "O stars and clouds and wind, ye are all about to mock me. If you really pity me, crush sensation and memory, let me become as naught, but if not, depart and leave me in darkness."
These were wild and miserable thoughts, but I cannot describe to you how the eternal twinkling of the stars weighed upon me, and how I listened to every blast of wind as if it were a dull, ugly siroc on its way to consume me. Morning dawned before I arrived at the village of Chamonix, but my presence...
Chamonix.
Chamonix? But my presence, so haggard and strange, hardly calmed the fears of my family, who had waited the whole night in anxious expectation of my return. The following day we returned to Geneva. The intention of my father in coming had been to divert my mind and to restore me to my lost tranquillity, but the medicine had been fatal. And, unable to account for the excess of my misery I appeared to suffer, he hastened to return home, hoping the quiet and monotony of a domestic life would by degrees alleviate my sufferings from whatsoever cause they might spring. Should I just go ahead and finish it out?
Oh, I was gonna read this next one and then see if more.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering.
Yeah, then Marisa can do the last sentence. Okay, go.
For myself, I was passive in all their arrangements, and the gentle affection of my beloved Elizabeth was inadequate to draw me from the depth of my despair. The promise I had made to the demon weighed upon my mind, like Dante's iron cowl on the heads of the hellish hypocrites. All pleasures of the earth and sky passed before me like a dream, and that thought only had to me the reality of life. Can you wonder that sometimes a kind of insanity possessed me, or that I saw continually about me a multitude of filthy animals inflicting on me incessant torture, that often extorted screams and bitter groans?
Here we go. By degrees, however, these feelings became calmed. I entered again into the everyday scene of life, if not with interest, at least with some degree of tranquility. End of Volume 2.
Music ended too! Oh, it almost did.
Oh, well, still.
Wait, let's let it finish out. Oh. Beautiful. Beautiful reading tonight, everyone.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like we were really on top of our game today.
Chamonix.
Chamonix! Alright, I'm gonna put a bookmark here.
Yes, he wants a wife. That's what he wants. He wants
One's companionship.
Reanimated creatures want one thing only, and it's disgusting.
And with that, I believe we end. Okay. Well, are you gonna stream some more tonight, Baljeet?
Yeah, I'm gonna play. Yeah, I'm gonna play a little bit some more Pokemon.
Okay, I'll
Ooh,
pass
which
it over to
Pokemon?
you then.
I am gonna play some more Pokemon Scarlet, the more of the Teal Mask DLC.
Okay. I did not pick up Scarlet or Violet because I heard pretty game-breaking things with it.
Oh, like it's glitchy and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's not as bad. I think some people like kind of like exploited some of the glitches.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it right off the bat either. I think I waited a little bit. But as far as like the story, it's interesting how like the story plays out, and was not expecting the ending either. So that was it was good. I also didn't play a couple of the ones on like the 3DS, so I don't know how like those stories compare. But
Yeah.
I mean, this has been like one of my favorite storylines. I still think it's up there with Diamond and Pearl for me because that was one of my favorite ones because the lore and just like the wide variety of Pokemon for that one.
Very sad. Wide variety of Pokemon. Okay, so in truth, that is true, except for the fire types.
Mm-hmm.
You have your choice of Sinnoh Pokemon fire types: the Chimchar or a Ponyta.
Better finish this conversation because the raid is happening right now. You better wrap up your point. You got 10 seconds of just about.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right, everyone,
All right.
have a good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Everybody.